Please get in the submarine, Cotton.
But it's only big enough for buddies.
There's no time to argue, Cotton. Get in the submarine.
Why do I just agree to do the things that people with British accents say? Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, it's a very special time for all of us Monster Hunter fans. There is something particularly unique about the period between the first teaser announcement trailer for a game or expansion and the first actual proper demonstration and info drop. Right now, there is so little confirmed information about this that everyone's imagination is running wild. People are imagining all kinds of fantastical potential outcomes in Sunbreak, and today I'm here to break down what we know from either in-game information or hints from the official Capcom Twitter that specifically relates to what is in the teaser trailer, as a way of focusing our thoughts as a community, in a way. So, let's look at the teaser. Main prominent monster is essentially Dracula if he could turn into a dragon instead of a bat, and you could absolutely be excused for assuming that the area that they show him in is his arena. Not like the guild arena, but like the Ingle Isle, the Sacred Pinnacle, those types of one-zone areas that aren't a full map. The specificity of the architecture, the way that the monster plays with it, it looks like a one-off tower in any other Monster Hunter game. That type of gothic structure, lots of people saying castle, but I've even seen some people call it parts of a cathedral. Blood moon in the sky. This feels like a setting designed to fight this specific creature. Or is it? Well, sure, I mean, it is, but it'll also have to fit a few more large monsters too, in my opinion, because this is not an arena. It is a full, large map. How do we know this? At the very beginning of the teaser trailer, there are small monsters, and they are absolutely adorable. I mean, I can't wait to walk up close to them and actually like interact with them and get a better look at their very odd shape and maybe pet their very furry looking bodies a little bit. Sorry, right, map? Okay, so in the history of the Monster Hunter series, arena maps like the ones that I mentioned earlier have never had small monsters, not even one of them. So that means that this is either the first arena map in the series that has small monsters, which I guess this is a full map, which I am much further inclined to believe, especially when you start comparing the idea of a full map of European Gothic architecture with little lore tidbits that we have gotten over the course of Monster Hunter Rise, some of which being dropped in little hints from different characters, from different conversations you have with them, and some being specifically from your cat in the walls, Fukushigi.
Gentlemen?
Firstly, and probably most importantly to all of this train of thought, Rondine. It is explicitly stated that she comes from a land with a queen, with knights, and that she was originally sent to Kamura in order to bring Hammond the blacksmith of Kamura back to her homeland so that they could use his superior smithing abilities. Instead, she grew to respect and love the village, and so she will only take Hammond back when he chooses to go with her, if he chooses to go with her. The thing is though, Hammond himself is also sort of rooted in Kamura because of his grandson, buddy handler Iori. In other words, there is lore, familial, relationship reasons that if the blacksmith of Kamura were to go with Rondine for some reason, the buddy trainer might also go. In other words, the person who makes Rise equipment is tied to the person who is in charge of Palamutes, a very Rise feature. I think both of them will be coming with us, easily allowing our blacksmith and buddy handler to remain the same in the expansion. Recently, through extra hints being dropped directly by Fukushigi the informant through this newfangled piece of equipment called Twitter, we have also learned that Rondine has an older sister who is a knight, which has been suggested is essentially just that society's local term for hunters. And it also says that she serves a king. If something about that statement makes you take a double take, then you're on the right track, because in the game itself we are told that Rondine serves a queen. This implies one of two things to me. One, the ruler has changed since Rondine left. When she was sent, it was by a queen, but she has been in Kamura quite a long time, so a change might have happened, and Fukushigi's source might know about it. Option 2, the king and the queen have equal power in this nation, split between different areas. The knight serves the king, but Rondine, with her interaction of coming to get this blacksmith, might serve the queen. Different operations within the same kingdom. I guess there is also the third option that this is a simple retcon. Maybe when Rise was being developed initially, they wanted it to be a queen of this nation, then later in the development process for Sunbreak, they changed their mind, and now it's a king. That's also totally possible. I mean, they haven't really dropped this level of hinting something this far in advance of a new release before in the series, it would totally be reasonable if something has just actually changed since then. But it would also be neat if it was actually like a shift in who the ruler was over time since the last time Rondine would be there. That would be a nice little story element, especially when you compare it with the backstory of Kagero the merchant, a mysterious former hunter who is apparently extremely capable too, even being referred to as heroic by Fukushiki the informant. These days he is a peaceful wandering merchant, though the wandering part of that not so much recently, as he took a particular liking to Kimura and has stuck around here for unexplained reasons. We found out through the Twitter version of Fukushiki that Kagero has lots of friends in unexpected places, some of which even saved a whole nation once, to quote properly. I could be reading into things a little bit, but I really think that Capcom wants us to read into these things. The way that they are tying these things together feels very purposeful. Either way, this sort of makes me feel like Kagero has at the very least been to Rondine's kingdom before. If this kingdom is not even the quote-unquote whole nation that was saved, being related to Kagero's friends. Then there comes the biggest mystery of Kimura Village, Yomogi the chef, whose origins are an absolute secret, known only by Hinoa, Minoto, Master Hojo, and Elder Fugen. She was brought to Kimura as a baby by a Wyverian hunter. It's also mentioned with very specific wording that Yomogi has an air of exaltation, a sort of prestige or nobility well outside of the norm, even mentioning a distant aristocracy. So, first things first, it may have slipped past you, but they did specifically say that Yomogi was brought by a Wyverian hunter as a baby. Remember, these are scripted hints in the game. It's not just someone talking to you describing the event, it's a specific hint. If it wasn't important that the hunter who delivered Yomogi was a Wyverian, then they probably wouldn't have told us that this hunter was a Wyverian, which means that it matters. Combine that with Kagero the merchant, the mysterious Wyverian who is a former heroic hunter with friends who saved a nation. It seems reasonable to think that Kagero either might be, or at least knows, the person who delivered Yomogi. Fukushiki doesn't think that he knows Yomogi, but that is because if Kagero did know about Yomogi, why would he tell anyone? His face is always covered, is it not? So, then we come to the specific words used to describe Yomogi: exaltation, prestige, nobility, distant aristocracy. Not just aristocracy, distant aristocracy. I see two options for this. One, the expansion will have two separate areas. The Yomogi story is separate entirely from Rondine, but will also be explored as a separate journey as part of the same expansion. I don't think that one is, however, anywhere close to as likely as Yomogi being from Rondine's homeland. Not only from Rondine's homeland, but being an extremely important person from Rondine's homeland. A child of a noble. To what extent that goes, it's sort of hard to guess, but quote-unquote nobility well outside the norm. I mean, she could even be a full-on princess for all that we know. If she is from Rondine's homeland, this would then connect Yomogi as well as Hinoa, Minoto, Fugen, and Hojo, who all know of her origins, with Rondine, Hamon, and Iori. If my Kagero theory is also true, that brings it even more into focus. Just to have a fun moment, I'll even throw all of my eggs into one really crazy specific basket. I'm gonna make a very specific guess, and well, feel free to make fun of me when it all turns out to be totally wrong. Word comes from Rondine's homeland that they need help. A letter arrives or some sort of communication detailing things that sound an awful lot like the Rampage of Kimura. Why? Because of course the Rampage mechanic has to continue into the expansion, which means that it also has to continue to whatever new village that we take up shop in. Rondine fully believes that Hamon's weapons are the only way to combat the Rampage, and recognizing that this event in her hometown is the Rampage, she begs Hamon to come, which he agrees to. Buddy handler Iori also winds up going. At this point, Rondine asks us, the hunter, to help. After all, we are the ones who properly stopped the Kimura Rampage. We're the ones who stopped it from recurring. And if this is the same thing, we're the perfect person to help out. With this, Fugen and Hojo tell Rondine, Hammond, and the Hunter about Yomogi's backstory. Of course, she is from Rondine's homeland, and so not only will Fugen allow us to go save it, he insists that we bring Yomogi to her family while we're there. Fugen might come with us, might not, that's not much hinted either way. Kagero, who either is or knows the Wyverian who dropped off Yomogi all that time ago, comes with us as well. After all, he's been secretly watching over Yomogi and protecting her since he arrived in Kimura, at least that's what I've thought for a very long time. Yomogi's return to this new land causes a bit of a political uproar, as she has been missing since she was born, and familial status tends to mean a lot in this type of society, and obviously she's quite highly ranked. She is noble, as has been stated. Thus, this all comes together with us in this foreign land, based on medieval to Gothic period Europe. A rampage. This time, instead of yokai-based monsters in the rampage, we have Western mythological creatures and cryptids filling that rampage role. New Gothic castle map for them to inhabit. A big old blood moon in the sky. Of course, capping off this theory is that the vampire dragon in the teaser is responsible for the apex monsters. Aesthetically, it would be incredibly fitting, and it would also be the absolute perfect excuse to explain why a rampage type event is happening in a completely different part of the world from where it was before. Now that we've gone through all of that, this week there is also more information coming from Capcom at the Tokyo Game Show, including the announcement of the return of a historical monster, meaning a well-known fan favorite returning monster. Just because I'm in a guessing mood today, I'm estimating lots. Let's take a stab at that too. Assuming that I believe my own theories I've gone over today, there are a number of things that could particularly fit the aesthetic of the expansion I expect. I would love to see Dire Morales, and I think that he could definitely be made again in a way that doesn't require underwater combat for him to function. But they aren't going to announce a black dragon as the second piece of information for the entire expansion, so let's put him on a bit of a side burner for now, a bit of a side volcano. The one that I know everyone wants, and the one that I think might actually be happening, is Gore Magala. He fits the aesthetic of what is going on unbelievably well, and considering they brought in a variant of Valstrax for Rise DLC, they are definitely willing to reach back to the 4th generation and call them fan favorites already. Also, he's a flagship, and for the most part, flagships have returned to the new style of hunting except for him. Gore seems extremely likely to me, especially now that we have this big old Dracula dragon who is probably responsible for making the apexes, and we could easily give Frenzy more of a back seat to allow this vampire dragon's mechanics to really take the front seat, and this way we could still have Gore around in general without having to focus on Frenzy. As for other monsters to expect based on stuff that's already been within base Rise, we also have things like Master Hojo sitting on a baby Tetsukabra for the entire game, and we never see an adult, so it's pretty reasonable to think that in the expansion, we're gonna see an adult Tetsukabra. By the same logic, Zamtrios. Zamites are all over the Frost Islands, the small monster version of Zamtrios, and Zamtrios is literally just a well-grown adult Zamite, which means that Zamites, given time, will become Zamtrios. The time between base game and expansion is sort of perfect for that in my mind. It allows a reason for the environment to evolve to fit this new creature. You may hear a bit of trepidation in my voice talking about him though. It's because Zamtrios is one of my top monsters of all time. I really don't want to get my hopes up in case it doesn't happen. Gravios is also very, very likely for the same reason as the last two though. If the baby is in Rise, the adult will likely be in Sunbreak. Basarios is just baby Gravios and he's in Rise. So because we have Basarios, we will probably get Gravios. Then finally, and this one is much more of a maybe, but in Iceborne we had Glavenus show up in Rise, we had Mizitsune show up. Sooner or later we are absolutely going to have new style fights for both Gameth and Astalos. Whether it is in Sunbreak or the next full game of the series, Capcom definitely wants to remake the Fated 4 completely. Alright everyone, I need to stop myself before I just start listing off all of the monsters of my hopes and dreams to come to Sunbreak. That's for another day. So this has been an information roundup on everything that we know about how the teaser for the expansion relates to base Rise and the information around it, as well as all of the assumptions that I'm willing to make as a result of that. Of course, you're free to make your own assumptions based on the facts. Do you think that my theory has any chance of coming to fruition? What monster do you think that we're having confirmed to return at the Tokyo Game Show? Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.